Keto Vegans, welcome back to another delicious episode of the Keto Vegan. I'm your host, Rachel, and today we're diving into the heart of the kitchen to whip up something truly mouthwatering. Yes, a keto vegan lasagna. Now, you might be wondering, can lasagna be both keto and vegan? Well, you're going to have to stick around because we're about to find out together. In this episode, I'll be sharing the ins and outs of this Rachel recipe, from its nutritional value, yes, I've actually measured everything, to the unexpected twists and turns I encounter in the kitchen. Spoiler alert, mistakes are going to be made. I know, surprising, isn't it? But the real question on our minds is, did I reach for the wine again? I guess you'll just have to stay tuned to find out. It's time to turn up the heat and let the savoury aromas fill your kitchen. This is the Keto Vegan, and I'm Rachel, your guide to guilt-free, plant-powered and keto-approved culinary delights. Let's get cooking. Today I'm making lasagna. Obviously no pasta sheets in there. I'm going to use courgettes instead. For the mince, I am going to use the Plant Pioneers no meat mince, 2 packs of that. So that is 1 kilogram altogether, and all the counts for carbs, fat, fibre and protein will be underneath, and then obviously add all that up, divide it into however many portions you cut it into. I'm also going to use This Isn't Bacon lardons, 1 pack of those, so that is 120 grams. I've already put in toasted sesame oil, 75 grams of that. 2 cans of chopped tomatoes, that's 800 grams altogether. I've taken 2 large green peppers, chopped those up. That actually comes to 330 grams. Chestnut mushrooms, I've got 300 grams of those. I'm also going to use the frozen sliced mushrooms, so that is 1 kilogram. And spring onions, because as I've found out, spring onions are the lowest carb count for all the onions. So that was just 1 bunch of spring onions that I've chopped there. And actually that comes to 105 grams. I'm going to put in garlic. I am putting in 14 grams of garlic and garlic paste, 30 grams of that. I'm going to put in some tomato puree, which is 100 grams of tomato puree. Smoked paprika, because we know I love a bit of smoked paprika. I am putting in 10 grams of that, and a generous squirt of liquid smoke. I don't know how much I'm going to put in yet. So that's the ingredients for the mince, and then I will show you the ingredients for the sauce once I've started cooking the mince. Begin by heating the oil and then adding your spring onions. Let them fry for a couple of minutes. I realise now I should have chopped these much finer. That's okay though, I'll learn for next time. So let those fry and get soft. Smells really good, I love the smell of the sesame oil. Once they're soft, and I know you can't really see much now because of all the steam, add the mince. Let that cook for a little bit before you add the bacon lardons, because the bacon lardons were fresh and the mince is frozen. So it's just, I'm thinking logically, I'll get this heated through a bit and then add the lardons. Then add the bacon lardons. And now is when you want to add your spices, herbs, if you're putting herbs in. I don't like herbs unless they're fresh. So I'm going to add the tomato puree, the garlic and the chopped garlic, a few squirts of liquid smoke. You don't have to use liquid smoke, but I really, really love it. And if I can put it in something, I do. Give that a stir around before you add the smoked paprika. So I'm now adding the paprika and give that a good stir through. That's quite a lot of paprika, and when I tasted it afterwards, maybe it was a little bit too much, but I do tend to go over the top on things, don't I? So give that a really good stir. You might have noticed that the volume quality has changed a little bit. That's because my fabulous recording equipment that I bought to do my podcasts failed with the microphone, etc. So I'm now recording as I'm watching. It's very interesting. You should try it. So I've added 2 tins of Sainsbury's chopped tomatoes. You can see what the count is underneath. Give those, I normally swill those out with some red wine or anything, but I'm giving those a really good wipe this time rather than just adding wine and swilling it all around. So put that in and mix that around. You can see I've mixed that around now. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm now adding the green peppers. Stir that in. I'm going to add, I'm sure what comes next is the mushrooms. Am I right? Yes, I am. The chopped closed cup mushrooms, they're going in. And it looks as if the pan is getting pretty full already without me even putting in the frozen mushrooms yet. So I know that I did manage to squeeze it all in. Let's see how I managed to do that. So I'm very carefully stirring that around, make sure everything stays in the pan. It looks pretty dry there, and I obviously know what the finished product looks like. I should have left it that dry, but of course I didn't. This is what happens when you do things for the first time and you're videoing it. I think, yes, frozen mushrooms are going in now. I did 2 bags of those. I do love my mushrooms, and the carb count on mushrooms are great. Carefully stirring that in again, and in goes another bag of mushrooms. And I remember thinking when I was doing that, like, how the hell is that going to fit? But I'd had the mushrooms out for a little while and they were defrosting, and if I'd put them back in the freezer, they'd have all stuck together. So if you are watching, you can see that I'm really, really careful as I'm kind of turning this over, because otherwise it will just fall out of the big pan. Obviously my pan's not big enough, or I'm doing too much. So at this point, I've been stirring it around a little while and thinking, goodness me, that's too dry. And so there I go with a mini bottle of wine and pour the whole lot in. Now, Retrospect is a wonderful thing, isn't it? I shouldn't have done that. I should have left it dry and let it simmer and all break down. I then start making the white sauce. I'm going to put in 160 grams of butter and get that melting. I'm going to add 5 packs of the free from cream cheese from Sainsbury's. That is, so that will be 850 grams altogether. And the carb count on that per 100 grams is 3.4. So that's, as I've said, that's really pretty good. It's not as good as some other cream cheeses, but other cream cheeses do not heat well. They go to, it looks like water. So I've already ground some salt in there and some black pepper, then decided that I wanted to add some ground white pepper too. The cream cheese has gone in, and then I'm adding some mayonnaise. I'm adding 325 grams of mayonnaise, and I'm using the Heinz vegan mayo full fat, of course. I don't think any vegan mayos are low fat, but that's okay for us. We want high fat as possible. So I'd been mixing that together till it became really lovely and smooth. I then decided to add some grated mozzarella style cheese. Now the carb counts on this is pretty high, and you can see in the details below the podcast the carb count with it in and without it in. Now, if you want to be really strict keto and get into ketosis, don't put the cheese in. But because I'm like at maintenance level, I decide that I do want that because it adds to the flavour. So I put the whole pack of cheese in, and you can see there that it's actually starting to boil. So when it does boil, when a white sauce boils, it spits at you. So do be careful with that. So you can see that I'm vigorously stirring it to stop it spitting at me. In goes the grated mozzarella. I do love these pre-grated packs of cheese. I never used to use those when I was non-vegan. They are so handy, aren't they? I mean, not cheap, but cheese isn't cheap, and we know vegan cheese isn't cheap. So that's going in, nicely mixing around. Depending how thick the sauce is at this time, you might decide that you want to put some plant milk in there. You can see that I put in half a cup of plant milk, almond plant milk unsweetened. Now the carb count in almond unsweetened milk is 0, so I do love that. Once in a while I do treat myself to a milky coffee. I normally have it black, but I always use the almond milk for that, the unsweetened. The layers I'm going to do, rather than the pasta, I'm going to do layers of courgette. If you're in America, that's zucchini. I've sliced that up. I have got 845 grams of that. I might not need it all. And a bag of baby leaf spinach, 200 grams of that. So you can see the mince on the bottom, the zucchini there. I'm just going to add the spinach. Spinach has gone on top. I'm now going to add the white sauce. The white sauce has gone on. You can see it's really messy, but it really doesn't matter. I'm now going to add another layer of mince, another layer of zucchini, courgette, spinach, another layer of cheese, and maybe even another one on top of that, depending how much space there is in the dish. I've only managed to do 2 layers because the dish is quite small. I have got another dish that I'm going to put the rest in. I'm now going to top it with some grated cheese. The grated cheese I'm using, again, is cheese, and the carb count is pretty high. It is 17 grams of carbs per 100. And again, you do not need to do that if you don't want to, because that will brown off without the grated cheese on top. So there you have it, a bit of grated cheese on the top, not loads because you don't want to go over the top with the carbs. I'm now going to put that in the oven for 30 minutes at 160. Here they are, they've been in the oven for 35 minutes on 160, cooked thoroughly through. Make sure you don't overload them when you're putting it together, otherwise it will overflow. As you can see, this one here has done a little bit, but not too much. I'm going to be able to get loads of portions out of these, and there was another very small one as well. Next time, if I'm going to use that amount of mince, I will use half the amount of sauce again on top, because the one at the back there, the one in the white dish, has only got the sauce on the top, not halfway through. I hope you enjoyed that episode. Sorry about the difference of my voice throughout it. Sometimes I was recording and watching, sometimes I was recording as I was doing. The carb counts in, that's what matters, isn't it? So I've managed to be very proper this time and add it all up. So total of what I made: grams of fat, 867, grams of carbs, 264, fiber, 134, protein, 371. Now, if you're doing it with the cheese in it, per portion at 25 portions from that whole dish, you get 35 grams of fat, 11 grams of carbs, 5 of fiber, 15 of protein. Without cheese in it, then you'd get 30 grams of fat, 8 grams of carbs, which is really good for a main dish, 5 grams of fiber, and 15 of protein. Now, if you enjoy this podcast, please leave me a review and share it with your friends. Thank you for listening, and stay tuned for the next episode.